Why do you look so sad?
I love to be unhappy. I live to be in pain.
I mean, at least it's not cancer.
Uh-oh. What are you doing? Yeah, it could be worse, but that doesn't help how I feel right now. Look, my situation is validly bad. I am allowed to feel this way and feel it deeply. But that being said, how can we make it through these hard times when our health is at its worst? Let's look into that. As most of you have noticed, I've been in a really dark place these last few weeks. And I know I'm not the only one combating these dark issues.
You can Google it, it's worth a Google.
And unfortunately, when you Google how to not give up hope, most of the things it suggests just don't really help with our situation. And the people around us try and be supportive with telling us things like,
"You can do it, you just put one cankle in front of the other."
And
Please don't give up hope.
but hear me out. What if hope is accidentally being used in an unhealthy way?
She's finally gone completely crazy. Not that I'm surprised at all.
A study by University of Michigan health researchers says that holding on to hope may not make patients happier as they deal with chronic type illnesses. But why? Well, the results show that people just don't adapt well to situations that they are expecting to be short-term.
That makes sense.
Now, the study was specifically on patients that had colostomies. Now, what a colostomy is, for those of you that don't know, it means part of their colon was removed and they now poop into a pouch that is glued onto their belly.
If you know a way to sugarcoat a colostomy bag, I would like to hear it.
So in this study, at the time of receiving their colostomy, some patients were told that the colostomy was reversible and that they could possibly undergo a second operation in 7 or so months if everything worked out. The other patients in the study were just told that the colostomy was permanent and that they would never have normal bowel function again. The group that the study considered to be quote-unquote without hope reported being much happier over the next 6 months than those who were told that their colostomies could be reversed.
Interesting reaction. But what does it mean?
Now don't get me wrong, I don't consider hope itself bad. I just think it's being used in the wrong way.
You got a better idea?
I believe stubbornness is a much stronger tactic for those of us that have chronic illnesses. There's a very good reason I always tell y'all to keep on surviving, and together we will survive. It's because we need to be too stubborn to ever give up.
Give up hope. Think about it.
And that doesn't mean we give up hope. Quite the contrary. It means we are too stubborn to even consider giving up hope as an option. And a perfect example of this is a story from a Holocaust survivor, Ava Kaur. Ava Kaur told the Huffington Post, "I have faced some very rough times. When I was 10 years old, my twin sister and I were used in medical experiments by Dr. Joseph Mengele at Auschwitz. He injected me with a deadly germ, and a few days later, he came to the sick barracks where I was sent. He never even examined me. He looked at my fever chart and declared, laughing sarcastically, 'Too bad she's so young. She only has 2 weeks to live.' At that time, I knew he was right. I was very ill, but I refused to die. I made a silent pledge that I will prove Mengele wrong, that I will survive and be reunited with Miriam. For the next 2 weeks, I was between life and death. I have only one memory, crawling on the barracks floor because I could no longer walk. There was a faucet on the other end of the barrack. As I was crawling, I would fade in and out of consciousness. I just kept thinking, I must survive. I must survive. After 2 weeks, my fever broke and I immediately felt a lot stronger. It took me another 3 weeks before my fever chart showed normal, and I was released from the barrack of the living dead and reunited with my twin sister Miriam. That event, surviving whatever I was injected with, serves to me as a very big source of strength. And when my son had cancer, I couldn't get him to accept the fact that he had to fight for his life, that he had to make the choice to fight for his life. No one else could do it for him. I repeated to him the story of my survival in Auschwitz. He got mad at me, and I just said, "Alex, when I was in Auschwitz, the doctors who were around me wanted me dead. I made the decision that I would live. Can you make that decision?" He got mad at me and hung up the phone. He wasn't ready to deal with it. But he called me back 2 days later. Alex said, "Mom, I think I understand it. This is my Auschwitz. This is my struggle that I need to survive." If the person who is suffering from cancer doesn't even want to make the decision to live, no one can help them. And my son is alive today.
Wow.
Now, I do have to mention that while stubbornness is incredibly helpful when dealing with long-term chronic illness, you do need to make sure your dark thoughts aren't being caused by something that's actually preventable or fixable. I personally have had experience with medication side effects. I am not in any way a person that will take my own life. I was on a medication that literally made me so nonchalant to the idea that it could have happened by almost by accident. It's like, well, I just don't feel like being here today. Do.
Oh my gosh.
Medication side effects. That is not something stubbornness can help. Another thing that can cause it is a bad diet and a lack of nutrients. And part of that lack of nutrients would also be not getting enough vitamin D from not going out in the sun.
You could use a little sun, trust me.
Outside bad. The sun's scary.
And as I've seen with some people that have literally made themselves so depressed, be careful how much negative news you watch.
Hey, Sharon, maybe you should stop watching the news for a little bit.
If the darkness is too strong and it's taking over, listed below is the website for every country's hotline. It is not a weakness to care about your mental health. Please don't put it off until it's an emergency. And if you're still having a really hard time understanding why learning to live with your chronic illness and being stubborn is better than chasing a cure or hoping your doctor will cure you or hoping the medical field will magically figure it out, even though they haven't in the last 60 years, I recommend checking out this video where I explain it a bit more specifically. And together, we will keep on surviving, my friends.